The Alien War Council gathered inside a dark chamber filled with glowing screens. The Zorath leaders studied maps of the galaxy, and all their sharp eyes focused on one small blue world, Earth. To them, humans were nothing but insects waiting to be crushed. They had conquered dozens of other species before, and they believed this war would be no different. Earth was seen as rich in resources but weak in defense. The Zorath generals whispered among themselves, laughing at the idea of human resistance. In their records, humans had never built massive fleets or advanced weapons. They saw Earth as soft prey, and they wanted to strike quickly to make an example. Kill the workers, destroy the outposts, and spread fear before humans even understood what had happened. The council leader, General Vekar, slammed his clawed hand against the table and declared that human lives would be harvested like crops. He spoke of how their warriors would gain honor and how the weak human species would fuel the expansion of the Zorath Empire. Around him, the commanders cheered, convinced victory was already theirs. They drew up the first attack plan, targeting Earth's outer colonies where small research stations and mining operations floated in silence. In their arrogance, the Zorath never once considered what humans might be hiding. They looked at Earth's old ships, slow and outdated, and believed those represented the best of human technology. They ignored whispers from spies who spoke of human scientists working deep underground, building something dangerous. Instead, they trusted their own superiority. They had larger ships, thicker armor, and weapons that had crushed entire star systems before. What could humans possibly do against them? The aliens had no fear in their hearts, only hunger for conquest. When the orders spread through the fleet, alien soldiers shouted in excitement. They looked forward to easy hunts and trophies from human victims. They imagined Earth cities burning, human leaders begging for mercy, and their empire gaining another planet to rule. The war drums of the Zorath thundered across their fleets as thousands of warships prepared to launch. Their sleek black vessels, shaped like blades, filled the void of space, moving with deadly purpose toward the human solar system. On one world controlled by the Zorath, celebrations broke out. The younger warriors painted their armor with symbols of victory even before the battle had begun. They bragged about how quickly humans would fall. Some laughed that they would return home within weeks, carrying human slaves to work in their factories. For them, this war was already won, and they had not even fired the first shot. Their confidence was so high that they barely prepared for resistance. They wanted to savor the slaughter, not fight a real enemy. General Vekar promised his soldiers that they would see human blood on their claws. He told them stories of Earth's weak armies, of how humans used primitive tools compared to Zorath technology. He even claimed that humans lacked the courage to face death, that they would surrender as soon as the first cities fell. His words ignited the warriors, and their ships roared to life as engines burned bright. The invasion force spread like a dark storm across the galaxy, heading straight for human space. Far from Earth, in deep space, the first fleets gathered near the asteroid belt. The Zorath commanders believed this was where humans stored their mining ships and orbital stations. Their plan was simple: destroy the outer defenses, then strike Mars, and finally Earth. They believed that once Earth itself was surrounded, humans would beg for peace on their knees. None of them doubted the plan. None of them imagined failure. In command centers on alien warships, officers sharpened their claws and polished their armor. They marked Earth's colonies with red targets on their glowing screens. They laughed as they watched recordings of human life, seeing families on Earth, children running through parks, workers inside small space stations. To the aliens, all of them looked soft, weak, and unworthy of freedom. As the alien fleets moved closer, their soldiers dreamed of glory. They wanted medals, new slaves, and tales of easy battles to tell their offspring. Yet none of them realized they were underestimating the very species that had survived countless wars on their own planet, wars that had forged humans into stubborn survivors. The Zorath thought they were bringing destruction, but what they were truly awakening was something far more dangerous. The first attack came without warning. In the silence of deep space, human colonies near the asteroid belt lit up with fire as alien weapons tore through fragile mining stations. Workers had only seconds to react before everything around them turned into debris. Screams echoed through the comm channels, but most were cut off before rescue could even be attempted. Families who lived on the colonies watched as alien ships rained destruction upon them, leaving nothing but ruins drifting in the void. For the Zorath, this was only the beginning. On Mars, the skies turned red as sensors detected the incoming fleet. Panic spread quickly through settlements. Soldiers scrambled to man defenses, but the weapons they had were old, designed for smaller threats like pirates or rogue asteroids. Against the alien fleet, they seemed useless. Human leaders argued among themselves, some calling for immediate surrender, others demanding resistance, even if it meant death. Across Earth and its colonies, news of the massacre spread in hours, striking terror into millions of hearts. General Vakar's voice echoed across alien transmissions, mocking the humans. He declared that their time was over, that the Zorath Empire had come to claim what was theirs. Alien soldiers cheered as each human outpost fell. They treated the slaughter like sport, racing to see who could destroy the most. The humans who were captured were broadcast as trophies, their images spread through alien networks as proof of victory. To the Zorath, this was entertainment. But on Earth, fear quickly turned to anger. The deaths of miners, engineers, and families became fuel for rage. Soldiers who had once doubted their own strength swore they would not let their people die in vain. Secret bunkers across the solar system came alive, and military leaders began speaking of weapons the public had never heard of. While the aliens celebrated their easy wins, whispers of human retaliation spread quietly among commanders. Still, the first strike was devastating. Entire colonies were wiped from maps. Trade routes were broken, leaving millions cut off from supplies. Refugee ships rushed toward Earth, carrying wounded survivors who told stories of fire raining from the skies. Every tale hardened the resolve of those left behind. Ordinary people volunteered to fight, ready to stand against an enemy that saw them as nothing but prey. In the alien fleet, confidence grew even stronger. Officers laughed that the humans had no answer. They believed Earth would soon send a desperate call for peace, offering resources and surrender to save what little was left. None of them could imagine that their easy victory had only awakened a storm waiting to be unleashed. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, hidden inside caverns carved by human hands, rows of sleek vessels rested in silence. They were nothing like the old warships the Zorath had studied. These were smaller, sharper, faster. Machines built not for defense, but for killing giants. Each one was armed with weapons that could pierce through the thickest alien armor, powered by reactors that burned hotter than stars. To the world above, they did not exist. To the few who built them, they were humanity's last secret. The project had been hidden for years, known only to a handful of leaders and scientists. Publicly, Earth showed weakness, letting alien spies believe they had nothing but rusting fleets. In truth, the brightest engineers had worked in silence, designing ships that could outthink and outfight anything the galaxy had seen. They called them deadly ships, not because of their size, but because of their purpose. They were designed to kill without warning, to strike faster than any enemy could react. Pilots were trained in secret, chosen from the best across every colony. They lived underground, cut off from the outside world, bonded to their machines through neural links. Their minds were sharpened, their reflexes stretched to impossible limits. They became one with the ships, their thoughts turning into speed and fire. Many never returned to the surface, sworn to keep the existence of the project buried until the day it was needed. Now, that day had come. Alarms blared through the hidden bases as the alien fleet's attacks reached Mars. The pilots sat in their cockpits, hands trembling not from fear, but from the weight of history. Generations had lived under the shadow of stronger species, always told that humans were fragile, unworthy of standing tall in the galaxy. The deadly ships were built to end that belief forever. Engines ignited with a roar that shook the caverns. The ground trembled as one by one the ships rose from the shadows. The hidden hangars opened like the jaws of a beast, and for the first time, the weapons humans had been hiding showed themselves to the stars. The world would soon know that the prey had teeth. The alien fleet approached Mars with the arrogance of hunters closing in on helpless prey. Their warships spread across the orbit, black shadows blotting out the stars, weapons charged and ready to erase the colonies below. On their bridges, alien commanders boasted about how quickly the planet would fall, their voices echoing with cruel laughter. But then the void stirred. Small signatures blinked on their sensors, too fast, too sharp to be mining ships. At first, they dismissed them as debris, but then the unknown crafts accelerated straight toward them. The deadly ships arrived like ghosts, darting between enemy cruisers with impossible speed. Their hulls shimmered with advanced alloys that twisted radar and sensors, making them vanish and reappear like flashes of light. One ship locked onto a massive cruiser, and in seconds, a precise burst of fire tore through its core. The explosion lit up the Martian sky, fragments scattering into the void. Alien officers stared in shock. How could something so small destroy a vessel built to withstand entire battles? Human pilots moved as if their ships were extensions of their bodies. Every tilt, every flicker of thought turned into perfect maneuvers. Alien guns tried to track them, but they were too fast, weaving through fire like shadows in a storm. A single squadron cut through 3 destroyers, their burning remains crashing into each other as explosions chained across the battlefield. For the first time, the Zorath fleet hesitated. On the ground below, Martian settlers looked up and gasped as the night sky lit with fire. They had expected death to fall upon them, but instead they watched alien ships bursting apart one after another. Cheers erupted in bunkers and shelters, hope blooming where moments before there had only been despair. Across human channels, the message spread quickly. The secret weapons were real, and they were fighting back. Inside alien command ships, chaos reigned. Officers shouted, trying to make sense of the battle. Their strategies crumbled as their heavy cruisers fell to ships no larger than shuttles. Their pride, their certainty of victory, cracked with every fiery wreck drifting across Mars's orbit. In that moment, the Zorath realized they had not come to face a broken species. They had awakened an enemy that had been waiting for this war all along. Across Earth and its colonies, the news of Mars spread like wildfire. Footage of alien cruisers exploding under the assault of the deadly ships played on every screen, stirring emotions in people who had been drowning in fear only days before. Grief for the lost turned into rage, and rage turned into unity. Miners, farmers, engineers, and students stepped forward to volunteer. People who had never worn uniforms before demanded to join the fight. Factories that once built civilian ships were converted overnight into arms plants, workers laboring without rest to supply the fleet. Families who had lost loved ones lit candles not only in mourning, but as vows for revenge. Each destroyed colony became a reason to resist harder. Children drew pictures of the deadly ships and taped them to the walls of shelters, whispering that the ghosts of the fallen were flying with those pilots. Across oceans and deserts, nations that once argued with one another suddenly spoke the same words. Humanity would not kneel. Pilots who had survived the first clashes with the aliens became legends within hours. Their names traveled across radio channels, and ordinary people whispered them like prayers. They were no longer just soldiers, but symbols, proof that humans could strike back against an empire that thought itself unstoppable. Veterans of old wars offered their knowledge. Scientists opened vaults of forbidden experiments, and doctors pledged to keep pilots alive no matter the cost. In orbit around Earth, commanders prepared more squadrons of deadly ships. They knew that the aliens would come again, this time with more fury and greater numbers. Yet there was no fear in their voices. The devastation of the first strikes had cut deep, but it had also forged something the Zorath had not expected: a unified human spirit. Every act of cruelty, every insult, every drop of blood spilled had only sharpened humanity's will to fight. From the smallest child in a shelter to the highest general in command, one thought echoed louder than all others. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about showing the galaxy that humans would never be prey again. The Zorath Armada returned with a vengeance, their largest battleship leading the charge. It was a colossal vessel, bigger than any human city, layered in armor so thick it had shrugged off the fire of entire fleets in past wars. Its cannons glowed with power, each one capable of turning a continent into ash. Alien commanders swore this single ship would crush human resistance and erase the shame of Mars. They wanted to prove to the galaxy that the Zorath Empire was still invincible. The deadly ships rose to meet it, dozens of sleek forms slipping through the void like blades of light. Compared to the alien Titan, they looked like insects. Alien crews mocked their size, certain they would be vaporized in the first volley. But when the cannons roared and the energy blasts filled space with fire, the human ships danced between them, weaving through destruction with impossible precision. Not one was struck. The battle raged for hours. The massive alien battleship unleashed storm after storm, but each barrage found only empty space. The human squadrons darted in close, firing surgical strikes that pierced gaps in the armor, carving scars into the giant's hull. The alien crews grew frantic, their roars of laughter turning into shouts of panic as alarms blared across their decks. Systems flickered, fires spread, and confidence cracked under the relentless swarm. Pilots fought like they had nothing left to lose. Every maneuver was a risk, every shot fired with the memory of slaughtered families burning in their minds. One squadron sacrificed themselves to breach the battleship's shield, opening the way for others to strike deeper. Human voices echoed through comms, not with fear but with fierce determination, calling each other brothers and sisters as they attacked together. Finally, a coordinated strike from multiple wings of deadly ships found the reactor core. Light brighter than the sun tore through the alien flagship as it split apart, its pieces drifting like burning islands across the void. The explosion shook even the surface of Mars, where survivors gazed up in awe. The Titan of the Zorath Empire, the ship that had once symbolized unstoppable power, was nothing more than wreckage in the dark. Across human channels, silence fell for a moment, broken only by the sound of pilots breathing. Then came a single cry of victory, followed by thousands of voices joining in unison. Hope had become triumph. The galaxy had just witnessed the impossible, the hunters brought down by the prey they once mocked. Panic spread through the alien fleet as the wreckage of their mighty battleship burned across the sky. The commanders who had once mocked humans now shouted desperate orders, trying to hold their formations together. But fear was stronger than discipline. Some captains fled without command, their ships scattering into the void. Others fired wildly, wasting energy as the deadly ships picked them apart with surgical precision. The proud Zorath war machine, which had never known defeat, was collapsing before their own eyes. Messages raced across alien networks, carrying warnings to distant worlds. They spoke of human ships that moved faster than thought, of weapons that cut through their armor like knives through cloth. The stories spread quickly, twisted by fear, until even those who had not fought in the battle trembled at the name of humans. Soldiers who once bragged about victory now whispered of curses, swearing the humans were demons born from war. On Earth, cheers filled every city, screens lit up with images of alien cruisers fleeing, proof that the nightmare was ending. For the first time, humanity stood taller than the invaders. Survivors from ruined colonies watched the retreat and felt justice burn in their hearts. They had lost everything, yet they smiled through tears, knowing their people had not only survived, but struck terror into an empire that had once seemed unshakable. In the alien council chambers, silence replaced arrogance. The same generals who had laughed about crushing Earth now avoided one another's eyes. They could not explain the failure. They could not understand how a species they called weak had broken their greatest weapon and forced them into retreat. For the first time in generations, the Zorath spoke of surrender, not conquest. The deadly ships did not chase every fleeing vessel. Their pilots watched the retreat with steady eyes, knowing the message had already been delivered. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength. Every alien empire that had once looked upon Earth as prey now knew the truth. Humans were predators too, and they would fight harder than anyone when survival demanded it. The war ended in silence, not in the roar of cannons. Across the stars, the Zorath fleets withdrew, leaving behind wreckage and the ghosts of their arrogance. Space that once trembled under their shadow now belonged to the humans who had refused to break. The ruins of colonies were rebuilt with hands hardened by loss, and every stone carried the memory of those who had fallen. Out of ashes rose cities brighter than before, forged in unity and defiance. The deadly ships, once hidden in secrecy, became symbols carved into the soul of humanity. Children dreamed of flying them, artists painted them into the skies, and storytellers turned their battles into legend. Pilots who returned from war were honored not just as soldiers, but as guardians of their species. They walked among their people quietly, carrying scars and memories, knowing the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Alien eyes across countless worlds watched in uneasy silence. Where once they had seen a fragile race, they now saw fire burning in the dark, a fire that could not be extinguished. The tale of Earth's resistance spread faster than the Zorath retreat, whispered in markets, in war councils, and in the shadows of empires. Every ruler who had thought of conquest began to rethink, for none wished to awaken the wrath that had brought an empire to its knees. On Earth itself, life slowly returned to rhythm. Families mourned their dead, but they also celebrated the birth of a new age. Humanity had proven to itself that survival was not enough. They had become something more. The war had shown them unity, invention, and the power to shape their destiny among the stars. The deadly ships remained in orbit, not as weapons of fear, but as guardians of peace. Their presence reminded every outsider that Earth was no longer defenseless. The humans who once looked up at the stars with wonder now looked with pride, for they had earned their place among them. And so the galaxy shifted forever, marked by a truth no one could deny. Humans were no longer the hunted. They were a force to be reckoned with, and their story was only beginning.